Welcome everybody to e-commerce marketing crash course with Simon and Adam from Bastock and Bachelor the Bullshit Busters. Some of you may have seen the podcast or watched the podcast on video or listened to the podcast on iTunes or Spotify. So welcome to those who do regularly join us for those sessions. Some of you may just be connected with us on social and have seen the session and thought this sounds a good thing to do. So welcome one and all. And if you're watching on YouTube live, then welcome to you as well. So Adam, do you want to give us a quick intro to what we're going to be covering today?
Yeah, so let's kick off. Thank you all for coming. So this is obviously us, the lovely hosts, Simon and Adam, if you hadn't noticed already. So the plan is essentially it's going to be roughly 45 minutes presenting. It might be slightly more than that, depending on how kind of rambly and caught up we get. And then followed by hopefully a 45-minute Q&A where any questions you have, we can go over them in a bit more detail. So the idea is that this is going to be a very top-level kind of look at quite a few different topics, which I'll go on in a minute. So any questions you have as we go, just check them in chat, and then we'll answer them at the end. And then the topics we're going to cover are, it's going to be focused around digital marketing. So we wanted to cover all aspects really. So we're going to be going through SEO, search engine optimization, Google ads and PPC, social ads such as Facebook and Instagram, email marketing very briefly, and kind of top tips for it, refer a friend and affiliates, and then digital PR as well. So the idea of this session is to give you a very quick and kind of high level look at what is going to be right for your business, what is the most appropriate, and what kind of just basically what options are out there for you really to work with, and what might be right for you. So should we just get stuck in?
I think we should. Yes, and just to mention, if you can, if you've got any questions, if you type them into the chat as we go along, I'll keep an eye out in the chat window I've got open here. And we'll try and either answer them as we go, or if we think they're coming up on a slide very soon, we will cruise through them and then answer them in the slides. And then what we'll do is we'll loop back at the end and pick up those questions that we don't get to answer either through the slides or as we go along.
Yeah, but please do ask as many questions as you want, because I think this is going to be a whistle-stop tour. So, right, SEO. I'll kick this one off if that's okay, Simon.
Yeah, go for it.
My baby. So. Search engine optimization, it's quite a complex beast, but to run through the pros very quickly, it is free, apart from the fact that you normally have to pay someone like me to kind of help you out. And it takes a lot of time to invest in it and just generally create content. So there is a cost there of time and or money or both. There's huge potential long-term for it, so you can really scale your business and it will really help transform. We'll look at an example of that in a minute for one of my clients. It helps feed other marketing, so it can help build email lists and social media remarketing, and just various other parts of your marketing machine. Over time, if you keep investing in it, you can then compete on more and more high volume, high difficulty terms and start competing with national retailers. It's often easier to start out with kind of local niche terms if you are just getting started. So if you're searching for something like Brighton cheese shop, it's going to be far easier than if you're trying to rank for the word cheese nationally. And it builds long-term resilience. So this is something that I've seen in the past kind of 4 months or so when people's digital marketing budgets have been at risk of being cut or have kind of stopped entirely in paid media. If you've got good SEO, you can take away your Facebook advertising, your Google advertising, and you still have a business that will be there and it will run. You don't have to rely on their other external channels. That's not to say that other channels are kind of better or worse than SEO. You know, there's entirely valid reasons why you'd use them, but it just lets you not rely on them too much. And it means that if you've got a strong SEO base, you're kind of just a bit more stable as a company in my eyes. Downsides of SEO, it does require a lot of regular investment and results are slow. So if you're looking to try and transform your business quickly, it's not necessarily the right channel for you. You do need to be just kind of strategic with it and put work in. So an example that we kind of discussed the other day, and if I've remembered this correctly, then correct me, Simon, but the idea being that it's like people think of SEO sometimes like a one-hit wonder where you do it once and then it's done. Similar to if you're buying a house, where if you got someone in to survey the building and make sure that, you know, it's not going to fall over as soon as you buy it. The difference is that once you've bought a house, you're then going to invest time and money into it in terms of changing the kitchen and decorating and upgrading certain areas of it and making it a much nicer place to be. And that is essentially what SEO is like with your website, is we can do a technical audit on it and make sure that the website isn't going to fall over, but it still needs regular investment of content and kind of, whether that's product collections, new product pages, adding Q&A sections, etc. There's always going to be more work to be done there to make it just a nicer place to be from a customer point of view. But that brings us on to the next point of that's why it tends to snowball as well in terms of the results. So because you're doing all this work and it's so large, the amount of work you can do on it, that's what then makes the results increase faster than they would. It's not like 1 month you double it, then it goes up another 10% and another 10%. It's more that you tend to double kind of every 6 months or so if you're kind of winning big terms. The other downside is it's not always appropriate depending on your industry. Sometimes if you're in a really competitive kind of product market, so I did an audit recently for someone who sells kind of subscription food boxes. So think kind of an alternative to HelloFresh or Blue Apron or something like that. It was impenetrable because you've got all these multi-billion-dollar companies that have got huge marketing budgets who are competing on those terms. And it was like, okay, well, maybe SEO is not the right channel here. Focus on Instagram advertising instead. So just a very quickly example of one of my Shopify clients I've worked with. This is the advantage of it in terms of that scale, is that if you continue investing in it and you're constantly writing new blog posts and kind of building your brand, you see far bigger return on investment than you would from any other channel, I think. So we were writing regular, highly specific blog posts. We were building links to that kind of content and answering people's questions, creating very specific collections of products for people searching for quite unique small phrases. And then every new product range that came in, we were researching around it and answering questions. So it's really high effort, but the answer is that after 2 years, they were at 71 times increase of traffic from what they were in the first month, which has obviously transformed their business. And conversion rate hasn't gone necessarily matched that, or revenue's not matched that, but it has just transformed them, and they could do so much more with their other marketing now. Hope that's...
I think the other thing to note there is that if you were doing ads, you could probably have got to that 71,000 visitors in month 1, but you would have been spending an enormous amount of money. So I think this is where SEO is playing the long game. You know, even if you look in sort of month 12 on that, you know, that's gone up almost 20. It is a slow investment, but you know, as Adam said, you don't need to keep spending on ads. You know, if you just flow to afford quite expensive Google ads, then you know your SEO is still there working hard.
Yeah, exactly. So with Google Ads, for example, which we're going to go on to the next slide, but if you're spending, like, say, £1 per click, which isn't kind of out of the realms of possibility with a lot of e-commerce terms, you're then spending 71 grand a month on Google Ads, which is a huge amount to be kind of committed to as a regular spend. And, you know, it can work for your business if you've got that scale, but this client didn't. And, you know, they're quite a small business, so they had to just invest in this and spend the time on it, really. Anyway, let's move on. So Google Ads and pay-per-click. Well, that's what PPC stands for. Quite guilty of commonly using the word PPC without actually explaining what it ever is. So the pros of Google Ads, as Simon just mentioned, is it's very quick to set up. If you've got a couple of grand burning a hole in your pocket, we can get it set up basically tomorrow and have traffic driving to your site. You can target very specific kind of intent terms, such as water bottle for sale or something kind of really high conversion orientated, where someone is searching for sale. It's quite flexible, so you can turn it off. So if you do suddenly find yourself unable to source a product because of a supplier's run out, then you can just turn that kind of campaign off. And it's a very clear return on investment as well. So the conversions will always track quite well to how much you're spending. Or can be attributed, to what you're spending quite easily. The downside, as we mentioned, is it is very expensive. It's complicated to set up quite often. You need to understand your margins and your cost of goods sold to really make the most of it, to make sure you're not just losing money. And it does require kind of expert regular care, especially the more complex campaigns get, the more you want someone who knows exactly what they're doing, who can go in there and really optimize for your audience as well as for your kind of product. So just run through the three kind of options quickly. Sorry, Sam, did you have something to add on the...
No, it's all good. All good.
Okay. Just running through the kind of three very rough kind of sections of what Google Ads is split into. So Google Shopping is the most visual and the kind of most attractive one. And this is one that a lot of e-commerce stores always want to get set up. The difficulty with it is that it's quite complex to get there. It is the most complex of all the kind of Google ad types to set up. It's most complex to manage. It's quite easy to spend money accidentally if you're not kind of taking care of it. But the benefits is once it is in a really good place, you can scale it quite easily. It's really good if you're selling visual products such as kind of jewelry or furniture or clothing or anything like that. And then once it's optimized, it doesn't take that much effort to run it. So, once you've been doing it for 3 or 4 months, say, it might be that actually that one product range is really well optimized and you can just let it scale and let Google have more budget and kind of run it for you. So
I think it's also worth mentioning that the actual bidding and budgets are now really well managed by Google's automated bidding. So as long as you've got a really well optimized feed of products going into Google Shopping, then actually Google can take care of most of the complicated work for you. One thing I would say though is that if you've got a large product range, you're going to want to look at someone or an external tool to manage the feed. Yeah. Because as much as Google's advertising makes it seem like it can take any feed and work with anything, the reality of it is very different. Especially if you're using WooCommerce, you really do need to untangle what WooCommerce is throwing out, and you can write really clever rules to do a lot of the work for you. But if you want to, if as Adam said, if you're in a competitive space, so with these examples here, if you're competing with Farrow and Ball, B&Q, John Lewis, you need to be spending money on a feed manager because they certainly are. They're using experts, who will sit there and poke and adjust and tweak this feed all day, every day to get conversions working. So you can compete with them using some of these feed managing tools. And if you get in touch with us, we can recommend some for you. But I would say like 90% of the work you're doing with Google Shopping is in the feed. And then the rest of it is Google does it for you.
So something I've not mentioned here, just to explain that a little bit further, is the way that Google Shopping works is Google will read your products and then show them for keywords that it thinks is relevant. So that's why you want the feed to be so optimized, is so that Google knows exactly what your product is. It knows the color, it knows the size, it knows the weight, it knows the kind of target audience. So then it can just automatically show it to the right people. Whereas the next type of Google Ads, you control the keywords far more. That was a seamless link, you see. I've got a career in radio.
Very nice. Very nice.
So these are the normal kind of Google search ads where you've got, you will define the keyword you want to appear for. So the examples I've used here are buy paint, which is the top one, buy living room paint, or buy bathroom paint. And you can see how the ad text here has changed on each of those to be more relevant to that term. So with this Lick Home paint company, I would expect their campaigns to be set up around kind of like living room. They'll have one living room campaign, one bathroom campaign, and then one normal campaign, which then customized based on what you're searching for. The benefit of this type of search is it's quite easy to set up. So you can probably set it up within a few hours if you know what you're doing. It's quite simple. You just need to know what keywords you're targeting and what your text wants to say. The downside is that because of that, it's normally quite competitive, and there's a lot of people who will be doing it, which makes it quite expensive. So I've not looked into these kind of keywords, but they could be anything from between 50p to say £3 or £4 per click. So that means that for every click to your site, if that's costing £4, to get 10 people to your site in one day is 40 quid. So it suddenly ramps up quite quickly depending on your product type. It does require
We have one client. Oh, sorry, I was just going to say we have one client that's paying around £35 a click.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Well,
but the client on the end of the phone for that click is probably worth about £6,000.
Right, okay.
So they're willing to spend that money because if they can get 10 people on the phone a day, that adds up very quickly. So
I think that's a really good example of why.
That's why you have to understand your cost of goods sold as well.
Yeah, and I think also understand kind of what people are searching for. So the benefit of this is you can define exactly what someone's searching for. So if you're in a really niche service product, such as if that's maybe, I don't know, installing bathrooms for Victorian houses in a certain area of town, even if it is really expensive, at least you know that it's a highly kind of curated audience who are actively searching for what you're selling. And that's why it's kind of so beneficial, is the return on investment could be quite good because you're able to reach people who are actively searching for what you sell. The downside of it is that you can burn through money quite quickly if you don't set it up correctly, and it does need regular investment to kind of experiment and see what works. So you want to be spending a few £100 per month over a minimum period of say 6 months just to really have the flexibility there to see what works. Next type of Google ads advertising is remarketing. So you've quite often seen this, especially on local news sites, which seem to just entirely be funded by spammy ads. The benefits are you get a huge reach, so it will appear anywhere and everywhere. It's great for brand awareness and just showing like Habitat do here, where it's just a reminder to go back to Habitat and buy stuff from them. It's cheap as chips, so like this can be pennies per click, which is really good, and that's kind of quite alluring. But the downside of it is it's very low quality, very low conversion rate, and people do tend to just kind of blank them out and ignore them. So it's not actually that great for conversions or actually driving sales. It's more of a supportive campaign to your other activity. So that's the end of Google Ads. Social media and paid advertising. Simon, do you want to take this? Or?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of social advertising, mainly what we're looking at here is Facebook and Instagram ads. Now, these ads are managed through Business Manager. So Facebook Business Manager manages both Facebook and Instagram. So they're very easy to get set up and launched. If you've got access to your website and a little bit of technical know-how, you can get them launched up and running fairly quickly. They can be more effective than pay-per-click, and that is mainly just because I think Facebook is sort of still fairly cheap compared to Google. Google used to be as cheap as Facebook is now, probably I'd say about 5 years ago. But because it's an auction, the more people get involved, the higher the prices get. So we've got one client at the moment who is in a market where everybody has suddenly come back. So he's running a gym. So his ads are now costing him 5 times as much as they were before the COVID. Because what happened is everybody then, they were running a few ads here and there because their gym memberships were ticking along, maybe 80, 90%, and they were just topping up for the 10%. Now pretty much every gym in the country has got themselves on Facebook, and the price and PPC, you are in an auction, so you are subject to market forces in that sense. Social advertising is really good for if you've got customers where you've got a calculated lifetime value. So for example, a gym, you know, most people will be in a gym for 12 to 18 months. You'll get some real hardcore that stick it out for the many years. You'll get some people who only last 2 months, but on average, you're looking at 12 to 18 months. So you can work out what your customer lifetime value is, and then you can work back an acquisition from that. Even if you're not running a service, if you're just selling something like a product, again, it can work very well, but it's sometimes a bit harder to attribute through, depending on how you've got your attribution set up. So it's incredibly good if you're doing anything to do with lifestyle or impulse purchase, like the amount of water bottles and watches and just tat that I see on Instagram, like shower heads with lights in that change color. I mean, wow, people will buy this stuff 40 quid a go.
Yeah.
It's genuinely about 80p to buy this stuff wholesale. And anyway, that's a whole different workshop. But basically, if you're doing lifestyle or impulse purchase, because these adverts are so visual, they use videos and images, it's really good. It's a fantastic network for that. The downsides are it does require continued investment. So like PPC, you do have to make it, you do have to pay for it to get it working. It doesn't work when you're not paying for it. It is a bit more focused on building your brand rather than good for people who are actively searching. So like Adam mentioned for PPC, if I'm searching for a plumber near me, I'm probably looking for a plumber now because I've got a leak or I need something fixed. That's like someone who's actively searching to buy. However, on Instagram, I'm not actively looking for a plumber. I'm just on Instagram. So that's why we say it's good for building awareness. So if you want to be front of mind when someone's thinking about which plumber they're going to call, then Facebook and Instagram is for you. Whereas if you want to be actually getting someone who's got a leak now, then you want to be looking at PPC. So again, it depends on what you're doing, what market you're trying to get to.
I think that's really why it does take a lot longer.
Should we go to the next?
Sorry, I think that's why it kind of does require that continued investment as well, because you need to have that runway of being able to get people in front, get your brand in front of people to then see what they do over like a 3-month period, because they're not going to necessarily convert on day one, but they might convert in month 3 if they then buy something from you, which is then still valuable. And it might still be effective, but you need to have that first 3 months of budget just to get to that point of testing.
Yeah.
This brings us on to remarketing as well within social ads, which...
Yeah, so remarketing is essentially the same as the Google Ads remarketing. So it's following people around the internet with ads based on things they've interacted with or things they've seen. So Google really only works well for retargeting products or web pages. Instagram and Facebook takes it a step further. You can target people who've been to your Eventbrite page. You can target people who are on your mailing list. You can target people who've interacted with your Facebook or Instagram profile. So there's lots of different ways you can retarget. So the retargeting opportunities on Facebook and Instagram are much larger. It is very effective. It's great for bringing people back to the checkout. It's great for consideration purchase. So if you're thinking about buying a product or service from someone, these ads can be really good at reminding people that you exist and also bringing them back to your website to hopefully convert. It's very easy to set up retargeting. As long as you've got your pixel on your website, it's super easy. You can put the pixel into Eventbrite, you can put it into MailChimp, you can put it into pretty much everything. The only thing that is a little bit more difficult is linking a product catalog on Squarespace to Facebook. It's not impossible, it's just a bit more difficult than everything else I've mentioned. Pretty much everything has a box that you paste one number into and click go, and it's done, and everything else is mapped. It's just that one particular thing on Squarespace. If you do need a hand with that, remember you can always just get in touch with me or Adam and we'll happily point in the direction of how to get that set up. The other difficulty with Facebook retargeting is you do need quite a lot of traffic and you do need quite a big audience to make it work. So Facebook, if you don't give it much traffic, it throws a strop, throws its toys out of the pram, and it just sits there and doesn't do anything. Particularly now, it says it can't get out of learning phase. If you are stuck with that in your Facebook ads at the moment, it's because you don't have enough traffic. So you need to widen your audience. And it can be frustrating if you don't exclude people. So, for example, I use it for Marketing Success Club. So I use remarketing, but then as soon as someone becomes a member, they get tagged as a member. And then I have an audience of people who are members, so I show them less ads than I show people who aren't members. So if you can feed that back, if you can link that data back into Facebook and you can take people off of your ads list, essentially. So that might be people who've done a checkout if you're running WooCommerce Shopify. Always remember to add an exclude audience of completed purchase. I use Mighty Networks for running Marketing Success Club, and you can plug your pixel into that and it tells you people who've what they call completed registration. If you're doing Eventbrite tickets, you can exclude people who've purchased a ticket. You get the idea. You don't chase people around the internet for months and months and months, showing them ads for things that are already. Do you want to move to the next slide, Adam?
Yeah, just very quickly on that. I think Shopify is really easy, kind of out of the box with this. So it's quite easy to set up in terms of just going, right, I want to, people who've added to basket or people who've purchased, that information all automatically gets pushed to Facebook ads once you've got the pixel set up. So that's kind of the benefit of these systems.
Yeah, Shopify and WooCommerce have pre-programmed user journey maps. So, and it's all in language you can understand. So you can say, people who've added to basket but not checked out. That's just it's all very nicely plugged in for you. So super easy to get started.
Yeah, cool. Email marketing. So just, it's more kind of tips really than necessarily why it's good or bad, because I think everyone should be using it, and it's quite obvious things to be doing. The main thing is with e-commerce is use a specialist system. So MailChimp is great for you to get started with, but as soon as you start growing and want to start doing more kind of custom work, you use a dedicated e-commerce system. So there's Klaviyo, which I highly recommend, and I've got a few clients onto now. I just love it because it's really simple to use, and it's extremely complex in what you can do with it if you want to. So that's not to say it's complex to set up or use, but if you wanted to kind of do automated flows and exclude people based on what they've done on the website, such as what collection they've looked at or where they live or various other things like that, you can do it all within that, which is MailChimp you just can't do. So I would also spend time on automations for that very reason. Think beyond just one-off campaigns where you're sending like one a week. Instead, spend more time doing an automation series, like either a welcome email or abandoned cart emails or kind of education series. Because once you've done them once, they can then fire for the rest of time without you having to lift a finger. So I think a lot of e-commerce owners sometimes can get a bit caught up in the idea of doing one-off campaigns and sending out once a week or once a month or whatever, and they just don't have the time for it, which I think is perfectly reasonable. It's then about just going, well, how can I still talk to my people on a regular basis without the effort? And the answer is those kind of automations where you just set it so that on the first 5 days of them signing up, they get an email every day, and then 2 weeks after that, they get another email, and then a month after that, they get another email. That's all kind of very simple to achieve. So add value to win account signups, and I think both me and Simon are of the opinion you should always try and avoid discounts and minimize kind of just immediate pop-ups. I think pop-ups do have a place, but again, with something like Klaviyo, or I think MailChimp does this as well, where you can set a delay timer so that it only pops up after, say, a minute or two of someone on the site, just so that it's not annoying them and you don't get a higher bounce rate on the site for various other reasons. Back in stock notifications, also a really good option. Again, I think Shopify and Klaviyo does that kind of natively, where you can just set
also, if you have an immediate pop.
Oh. Have we lost Simon? I think we have internet issues.
Oh, sorry. I think there's a delay between me. I was just going to say with the sorry, I was just going to say with the pop-ups. Yeah, with the pop-ups, if you have an immediate pop-up, it can be really bad for Google Ads, because Google Ads thinks you're a spam site. So if you're running Google Ads, you can't have immediate pop-ups because it then doesn't read your site and ups for e-commerce personally on exit intent, which is when you move your mouse up to that other tab to go somewhere else and it pops up and says, hey, could we interest you maybe in something? I find any other form of pop-up to be just really annoying personally.
Yeah. The only ones that I've done is like if someone's on researching a product and you can base it on the page they're on, is then do a pop-up that's like, do you want to find out more about this? Sign up to then learn more about this product, which then triggers an automation email of like 3 emails saying, well, here's how you insure it. Here's, how it's delivered to you. And here's, the accessories you might want to buy with it as well. So it's a very soft sell, and it's more of an educationary thing than it is like give us 20, here's 20 quid off your next purchase. Because, that might not actually be I think that the main thing there is money's not often the issue with buying. It's more about that trust and kind of authority or knowing they're comfortable to buy it. So
I think it's definitely about the customer understanding what is for sale and what the benefits of that product are. I think if someone's going to another tab, they've either suddenly just remembered they need to add something to their online shopping for their Ocado before the window closes, and that's where your email is going to work because you've got an abandoned cart to bring them back. Maybe one of their kids walks into the room and interrupts that purchase process. There's lots of different reasons why people stop buying in that flow. And I think people who then suddenly throw a discount in are basically saying the price that you're seeing on the website is definitely wrong. It's always available cheaper. And to me, as soon as I see a pop-up with a discount code, I know that buried somewhere in that site, we're going to be able to get, at least 20, 30, 40, 50% off that product by just doing a rudimentary amount of Googling. So if you get known for doing discounts, people will always search for discounts, which is why I always say discounts are the absolute last resort for getting people across. But we come to this later. I would say for emails, it's a really great opportunity to tell your story, to tell people about why you do what you do, why you're different, why is your product, better, more rewarding. You can sell a dream. You can really tell people about your passion and your belief that you can do it better. And let's say you're making a product that saves rainwater on a drain, for example. You can give people maybe 5 other tips to save water around the house. Because, if someone's looking at that product, it's something they're conscious of, it's something they're thinking about. You're not trying to directly sell what you're doing, you're just helping with a bit of an education, establishing that you know what you're talking about and building that trust. So always go for trust and educate with emails, I would say, overall.
Yeah. Oh, another quick thing that I think someone mentioned yesterday when we were discussing this is product announcements is a really good way of just kind of re-engaging people in quite a simple way, where if you've got a new product line coming out or a new product range, just send that email to people as a way to kind of educate them and get back on the site, because they might not see it on social media, they might not see it on other channels, but it's quite an easy way of doing that one hit kind of campaign, which, we're not saying don't do one-off campaigns, but don't be scared about email because of that, the time commitment. So I think that's all on email marketing. Let's move on. Refer a friend and affiliates. So this is a bit more complex, I'll say, maybe. So affiliates, I've kind of run these in-house for companies before, and I've built websites that make money based on affiliate models as well. So I kind of know it from both sides. They are the essential concept behind it is that someone will click on a link, such as this view deal green button here. That'll be an affiliate link that then links through to Homebase. And then if you buy something from Homebase, the website that this is on will get a percentage of that sale. They will only get the commission if a sale is made. So the benefit of the affiliate model is that it's quite low risk for retailers. It doesn't look like advertising necessarily. So if you search for best dishwasher or best washing machine or best insert, product here, most of those results will be affiliate websites where they're making money off people searching for those terms. For that reason, it can help with SEO, because if you can get onto one of those pages and get a brand mention and get a link from these kind of big affiliate sites who are linking out to you, so like T3, The Independent, both kind of really high authority sites that do it, you can kind of get a benefit there, but it depends on how it's set up, which I won't go into. So it's not foolproof, but it can help. It helps build your brand awareness, more importantly. You only pay when sales are made, and it can help you scale quickly, because if you get a couple of links on a few high traffic pages, you can win from their traffic. So if you do get a link on The Independent on a best, dishwasher article, you as an individual website probably can't rank in that same position that The Independent can. So you're better off just working with them to try and get a slice of that organic search traffic. That's a whole different strategy. Anyway, I think the benefit with affiliates is it can scale, and you can reach a lot of different websites quite quickly and drive a lot of traffic to your site from using their kind of existing audiences and their web. The downsides are it's normally quite expensive to set up. So it's historically, when I've looked at this, it's normally been a couple of grand to get the integration with a platform like Awin, which then means that with someone like Awin, it's got two sides to it, where there's the advertiser, which is yourself, so the e-commerce store that is signing up to then be a merchant and share their links with people. And then you've got publishers, and the publishers are the people who are looking for the links to then put on their sites. So to kind of get into that network and that system, it's normally a few grand. Something I have seen recently is Awin do have a small business package set up, which I don't know how much that actually costs yet, but I've emailed them about it. So if you are interested, do let me know, because I'll keep you up to date on that. It will also be, it's time consuming and costly to run month on month afterwards as well. Normally a few £100, again, just kind of fees within the network, but also you have to approve transactions, so that any sales are coming through, you have to say whether it was legitimate or not, such as, was it fraudulent, or was it a return, was it cancelled, etc. So you have to kind of manually manage it a little bit. And then also you want to have someone who is going out to different publishers to kind of sell yourself and say why they should link to you. So I think if you're in in weddings or in hotels or in anything kind of quite aspirational like that, it's really good, because there's a huge amount of people out there who have got websites dedicated around hotels and wedding fairs and all that stuff. that you can then try and get in front of with those kind of really high intent existing audiences. But you need someone who's going to be constantly going out and talking to those people and trying to get new people onto the market. So there's an example here of if you were selling something on your e-commerce site for £100, you might be willing to pay that publisher 10% of the sale. Then the network fee is going to be like 3% of the sale as well. So that means that you're then paying £13 per sale. That might be quite a cheap cost of acquisition depending on your marketing strategy, or it might be really expensive. It really depends on what you're selling. Again, this brings us back to why it's so important to know your cost of goods sold and to know your margins. And really, if you're in a high margin product, then it might actually be worth it. So historically, the clients that have done well out of this were selling either artwork or they were selling kind of gifting, where the volume was so high on certain articles that it made sense. The margins were still really good because they owned the full production. They were quite vertical, where they were manufacturing it and selling it rather than just buying it in from a retailer. So there's many reasons why affiliate is a good model, but I think it's a slightly more kind of complex and advanced one that's open to you when you're at a certain position of growth and when you're ready to kind of make the leap and go, right, let's turn this into a really big business. Anything else on that, Simon?
No, I think that's pretty much everything on affiliates.
Cool. The easy version of affiliates is refer a friend. So the good news is that you can just do, there's quite a few apps on Shopify and WooCommerce, which is just refer a friend. So this taps into your existing audience of like loyal customers, which as a small business, you probably do have. They're really cheap and easy to run, builds loyalty, you can snowball quite easily. So like, I know Bulb is probably the most famous kind of refer a friend one, where it's an energy company where you both get £50 if you sign up. So it's instantly like, well, I think I personally have made about 600 quid just referring people to it. So why wouldn't I shout about it now on here as a thing as well? It's very low effort, so the apps kind of do a lot of the work for you. And if you're doing email marketing, it works really well as like an onboarding message or as something to mention on the bottom of emails. The downside is you don't really reach those audiences of maybe bloggers or publishers who have got that existing audience, so it's quite small scale. And you need to be clear on your communication with it as well and make sure that it's mentioned everywhere without being too desperate and beggy.
I think also the other thing I would add is that if you are going to do refer a friend, it needs to be really simple to understand from the user who's sending it, but also the user who's going to be claiming it. So for example, this is a really good idea, like 20 quid for you, 20 quid for a friend, 20 quid for you. There's no ambiguity. There's no 20 quid for a friend if you purchase from this category and spend more than £50 and check out before the 14th of August. That's not going to work. It's got to be a blanket deal of, you know, £5 each or share a tenner, or there's lots of different ones that work. But yeah, keep it simple to make it work, I would say.
And I think keep it generous as well, because it's often going to be quite cheap for you to manage it. So if you can build a really good relationship with your customers, they're naturally going to just share, your product with people. So,
especially if you're using a referral thing for something like a long customer lifetime value, like a gym or a membership, then you can afford to give away like a month free to both people, because you're probably going to get another 3 or even 6 months out of both of them for doing that.
Yeah. Digital PR. So this is a little more complex and interesting. This is the thing I've been looking into quite a lot recently as a solution, because it does link into SEO quite nicely, where we want links from high authority sites coming to ours. So some of these examples here are like the Independent at the bottom, and I think one's Home Living at the top as well. I can't remember which one it is, but the idea being that you as a brand want to be kind of going out there and making a lot of noise about yourself to raise your brand awareness, to build links to you, and to generally just get people to your site through referral traffic. I think the easiest way of doing it is to get reviews of products. So if you're selling clothing, just sending those out to people to get feedback on, and especially probably homewares as well, it works quite well. You want to be focusing on the national press, but also on industry-specific press. So if you're like a B2B product selling, drain covers, you want to be mentioned in the drain cover industry quite a lot, and in those kind of magazines that are highly specific to those audiences. But it's really about getting your name out there as best you can. The cheapest way of doing digital PR that I have found is a company called Pressloft. I've not used them yet, but they're a few £100. for a single release, I think, and you will access their database of publishers and kind of people who are actively looking for products to talk about. So that's quite a good way of doing it. There's also a couple of other services that I use called Help a Reporter Out and Journalink, but they're less kind of e-commerce focused, so they're kind of quite noisy. The reason why you'd use it, because I wanted to explain a little bit about it beforehand, is that it is a huge help to SEO. It helps build brand awareness. It does have the ability to transform your business quickly. So to give an example of this, one of my clients one from earlier actually, they got a link from The Guardian on a product review of one of their products. And literally overnight, they had jumped about 5 to 6 positions on all of their keywords because of that authority of that link, and because they've got, well, The Guardian's highly relevant, it's highly trusted, therefore we trust this site a lot more. And it was a small business, so they didn't have that many links to start off with. That then meant they could compete on a lot more keywords, and they were getting quite a lot more traffic, and it was a good kind of step up in terms of traffic numbers. So they were then getting to their site as a result of that increased position in Google. So that's what I mean by it kind of transforms the business quickly. I think it's essential to future-proofing as well. So the more your kind of brand is out there and known, the more people are searching for it, and the less reliant you are on other marketing methods again. Again, it's all about owning your kind of audience. So if you've got a lot of customers on your email database, or you've got a lot of people on your kind of Instagram or just on your website naturally searching for you, again, you've kind of got a business that's not too reliant on just other marketing. It's a whole build a brand rather than build a business thing. And competitors might not be doing it. So this is a big reason why I want a lot of my clients to put their hands in their pockets and invest in it, is because their competitors aren't doing it. And there's a huge opportunity there for them to suddenly make a big name for themselves as an industry leader by just spending on it. The downsides are that it is very slow. It takes a lot of work, I think, to get it. So you either need to work with a PR company, or if you're doing it yourself, it's just a case of waiting and for the right opportunity to come up. And being in the right place at the right time, which is why I think it's best to start as soon as you can, really, and start thinking about how you're going to do it and what your kind of outreach strategy and what your PR strategy is early on. It needs to have the business buy-in at every level, so it can't just be, as an example, me shouting at the business director to say that it needs to be done. You need to have buy-in from everyone within the company as well, to help build content, to help see the opportunity that's out there for news stories and stuff for them to be involved with. Results aren't guaranteed, so a lot of PR companies will guarantee a number of links, but they don't want to guarantee necessarily where those links are or who you're working with, just because they can't. It's not there necessarily, it's just impossible. It is expensive and it is hard work, unless you've got existing contacts and you can ring up your mate from uni who is now the editor at The Guardian, which coincidentally is how we got the link in The Guardian from the other people. So
I think it is definitely about who you know with PR. If you're in the right circles, you can do it yourself. If you're not, you're going to have to hire someone who is. And those people obviously have quite a closely guarded network of people, but the good people will be able to show you other similar articles they've got in various places and say, well, I know this person who can do this. They'll be able to talk you through what they can do. I would say anybody who can't sort of talk about where they're hoping to get you or what they're going to try and do is probably winging it on a fairly basic network, in the sense that people need to be able to demonstrate, okay, well, we have managed to get articles here, here, and here. And if they can't do that, I would say they're probably looking at it. It's essentially pretty much a sort of dressed up affiliate linking, which again depends on where you want to end up. I would say there's no harm in just going direct sometimes, reach out to them on Twitter or whatever. If you think you've got a good shot at it, then why not? Yeah.
That's the thing I was going to say there, but I can't remember what it was. That's good. If you are interested in that, industry, it depends on industry. So you want to be specific to get a PR agency or a PR individual who's got that network of people within that industry. So if you're selling, B2B homeware, then you want to be going to that network. If you're selling jewelry, you want to be in that kind of a jewelry specific PR person. If you're selling water bottles, you want to be in like a gifting kind of PR company. So it's worth kind of really analysing who they tend to work with because of the nature of it. So summary, that's kind of the end of each of those in detail. And I want to try and put this together as a quick overview of what you can do depending on where you are. So like if you've got loads of money, which one to kind of focus on, or if you've got loads of time, which one to focus on. If you don't have any of them, which one should focus on. I think the main focus here is to pick one. Don't try and do all of these straight away. Just pick one and do it really well. That will then get the kind of money moving and get people to your site, and you'll start seeing results for you then to go, right, our SEO is now really good. We can now start focusing on our social ads because we've got that traffic to retarget to, and we've got a really good email list, so we can start looking at emails. Or it might be, okay, well, we've really scaled up our Google ads, so we're doing as much as we can with that. We've got loads of traffic coming in and loads of sales happening, and we know what keywords we're now getting sales for, so let's focus on SEO on those keywords and really try and reduce our reliance on Google ads for that. So a lot of the problems that I've seen or chatted to small business owners for e-commerce over the past kind of 5-6 years is people want to be doing everything. And the danger is then you do everything really badly. Well, what you want to do is just pick one of them and do it really well and know what works, and then use that to inform the rest of your work, and scale it up from there. I'm probably quite happy to share the screenshot of this if people want it as a summary, rather than the mad jotting down that's probably going on in the background.
It will also be available on YouTube, so you can come back and watch it again.
Yes, of course. So very quickly, I think we're pretty all right for time. We've got another 5 minutes or so.
Yeah,
That's
then we'll be open for Q&A. Is my internet a little better now? I have jumped on a different Wi-Fi. I think we might be.
It's getting there.
It's getting there. Good stuff.
So metrics, just what to measure essentially. We wanted to very quickly run through this. So don't overcomplicate it. Keep it really simple. Focus on very few metrics. Revenue, obviously the important one, which often gets overlooked weirdly. So base it on monthly revenue, both year on year and on previous months, but then also by category of product. So if you've got quite a big product range, and this is something Simon was talking about, is that one of his clients, they separated it based on category because then they saw a change in kind of market demand and external factors. So
because month to month, your category sales can change quite drastically. And that's a really interesting thing to monitor, because sometimes, the customer we're working with has just over 800 products. So to monitor product by product it's just too much. Whereas if you do category sales, then actually he can see that actually product sales in this category have gone up, and then try and work out why that is. And is there then something we can react to with PPC or with Facebook ads to kind of try and drive that more? So I think there's quite a good, there's quite a good reason to always start. Like revenue should always be your first metric with e-commerce. I think, and what works for you, like, if you want to go product by product, then go for it. But if you're struggling with that, come up a level to category, and then, to just get a barometer, then go monthly.
So very quickly on Shopify with the category, you can do custom reports, and product type is what you want to be using there, because that's a really easy way of just seeing it. And the Shopify, if you're on there, like I think it's their 80 quid a month plan, you get access to their reporting, and it is really good. It's very flexible to be able to pull out like, okay, so what I want to pull up a report pull a report comparing vendors this month compared to last month, or a product type based on the product type rather than product vendor. I'm running out of mental energy now, and I'm just kind of spewing words into the abyss. So the product reporting on Shopify is really good, really flexible to kind of play around with. So happy to help out with that if necessary. The reason why we're saying revenue as well as one to focus on is that quite often people get caught up on conversion rate. Conversion rate is really important to look at when you're investing in your site and making sure it's improving. The downside is if you suddenly do a really good PR campaign and get 10,000 people a day on your site from that, your conversion rate is going to go through the floor, and suddenly look really bad because you've suddenly got this huge spike of traffic. But then your revenue might spike as well, but your conversion rate drops. So it's important to kind of look at these as a whole rather than just looking at one individually. Lifetime value, again, this links back to what we were saying earlier, where once you know lifetime value, you can kind of work out a customer acquisition cost and then go, well, actually, do you know what, making a loss on the first sale is fine because we know that within 6 months we're going to have made 10 times of that back. Email signups, again, because once you've got those automations in place, you can start attaching your value to how much email signup is worth. Once you've taken them on that kind of nurturing journey, is really good. Cost per sale, again, that helps. These into the past 2 points, really. It just helps you get an idea of how much you're spending to acquire customers and how much profit you're making. And then users per month as well. So just to get an idea of how many people are coming onto your site. Is conversion rate dropping actually not too much of a concern because you've tripled the amount of people that are coming to your site, that kind of stuff. There's loads more metrics you can look at, and if you Google what metrics for e-commerce, there'll be loads of listicles that are like 41 best metrics to measure your e-commerce store with, or stuff like that. These aren't necessarily the ones that are right for you, but I think they're just the really good basic starter set of like, just look at these, don't worry too much about the rest until you know what you're looking at, and then from here you use these to inform the rest of your business decisions rather than them kind of becoming these vanity metrics. Do we want to go through this section, Simon, or should we open up?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can go through this.
Okay. Oh, I love this. I always forget about this bit. So this is my favourite saying, is that good marketing won't save a shit product, is what it normally says. But
yes, indeed. And it is true. Ultimately, you need to make sure that you have got your product descriptions, you've got your images, and you've got your overall kind of product benefits described in a really clear and concise way. If you are bombarding people with facts and figures and using jargon and selling it in a way that people don't want to or don't understand, if you don't have a clear offer, then ultimately it doesn't matter how much marketing you do, you're still not going to sell any of it. So always get the basics sorted first before you approach marketing. Don't run in and try and get Google ads set up if your product descriptions aren't up to scratch. There's no point. You've got to get the foundations in place first.
Or in some cases, if you don't have any product descriptions, which I've seen before, where it's just like, this is a pink dress. It doesn't mention material, size, returns policy, delivery information, anything like that. And it's like, look, it's foundational stuff rather than marketing.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes, I'll do too.
So I think also the other thing that people often overlook is the really obvious stuff. So what makes you different from everybody else selling this thing? If you're in a competitive market, that's what you need to be talking about. Don't be afraid of telling people stuff that seems obvious to you. People often overlook the fact that some things in your process, in the things you do, seem obvious to you, and everybody does it, but does the customer know that? A great example, a very quick story, being the Miller beer. So Miller beer hired a PR agency or an advertising agency to come in and help them sell more beer. They walked around the factory and it's essentially just lots of metal tanks and pipes. So they were feeling quite uninspired until they got to a bit and the guy said, oh yeah, and that's the cold filtering bit. And the guy was like, oh, that's interesting. Now I'm interested, cold filtering. And he's like, yeah, but everybody does cold filtering. And he's like, yeah, but no one knows about it. So Miller is now the cold filtered beer. Even though every beer you've ever drunk is cold filtered, the only one that's known for it is Miller. And the thing is it ties straight into that point where you're drinking it and you want it to be cold. So a cold filtered beer is good, even though it's completely unrelated. So my point there being, you probably do something in your process, something that you just take for granted. You're staring at it, you do it all day, every day, and to you it's quite dull and boring. But actually, is that the thing that your competitors aren't talking about that you could talk about that would make you stand out?
Yeah.
As Adam has already said, if you can focus on the local, that always helps. So buy paint Brighton versus buy paint, because one is competing with Homebase, the other is not. Because there's one thing like Homebase, the big brands aren't fussed about local. They're just on the national terms. So you can often win and you can undercut them by not bidding on buy paint, but actively bidding on buy paint Brighton. You'll always save some money. Niche terms, as Adam gave the example earlier, like bathroom paint, kitchen paint, anti-mold paint, all of those things, really good terms to get into, because again, they're way easier to get good results on. Is it a good business or is it just a good idea? Again, this comes back to that thing of, is what you're selling actually something people want to buy, or do you just think it is? Have you tested it in the market? Before you plunge your life savings into an e-commerce site, I would definitely put a landing page up and say, I'm thinking of selling this thing. If you want to know when it comes out, put in your email, And if you can't get 10 emails for that product, it is not a good idea. It's not a good business. It's just a good idea. People aren't going to exchange cash for it. So if you're just starting out in e-commerce, make sure you're actually selling something people want to buy. I've got a series of courses over at Marketing Success Club that can help you work that out. If you are sort of struggling to work that out, give me a shout and we can go through those. And I think the other one, are you ready to sell online? If there's already 50 people selling it on Amazon, it's no good. It's no good. Go home now. It's done. You can't compete with Amazon, so don't try. You need to be luxury bathroom paint. You need to be, boutique cheese shop in Brighton. You cannot be selling Cathedral City by the ton. It's not going to work. You've got to pick your niche. You've got to make all of the things you've just said work. If there's already 20 people drop shipping it, then move on to the next idea or work out how you can describe it differently.
Yeah. Perfect. Part 2.
Part 2, be proud of your niche and service. This is something, and I think this kind of actually leads on to a whole other talk, which is, I guess, a little bit of imposter syndrome, which is that I've got this thing and I'm really happy with it, but I'm not really sure anyone wants to buy it. If that's your approach, then you're never going to sell it. You've got to be out there, you've got to be loud and proud and sell what you're doing and really own your niche. If you only sell cheese in Brighton, then don't talk about a great cheese shop in Edinburgh. Always bring it back to Brighton and keep talking about what you do and really enjoy it and own it. And you will build up the confidence eventually. So just keep at it. People really respond to authentic passion. So stick with it. The other thing that a lot of people offer is next day delivery. No one expects next day delivery. Everybody likes to see it, and they will hold you to it. If they place an order at 11:59 and it is not there at 7 a.m. the next day, they will want a refund. So just don't bother. Most people will be absolutely fine with 2 to 3 days, 5 to 7 days, 10 to 14, doesn't matter. As long as people know up front, you can have a longer delivery window. This whole thing of next day delivery is gone out the window, thankfully. I'm really pleased about it because there's very few things in the world that you need next day. And, it's the Amazon business model again of it just doesn't, unless you've got a majorly, quick turnaround warehouse, overnight fulfillment and a 2 a.m. DPD pickup, you're not going to be able to compete with it. So don't bother.
Well, just
2 to 3 days, absolutely fine. If someone wants to come and pick it up, you can offer it, whatever works for you, but don't feel pressured. As I've hinted at earlier, don't use offer codes and discount codes unless you really, really, really have to. An example here is if you give a 10% discount, you need to sell 33% more of that same product to break even. So 10% is an enormous discount. It's huge. This will bankrupt a small business, 10%. 5% is outrageous. 10% is insanity. I don't go near discount codes. If customers want them, I will begrudgingly add them to the site. But 10%, like let's say you've got 40% margin, you think, oh yeah, fine, I can get rid of 10% margin, that's fine. But that means you've got to sell an extra 33% to make that back. For a lot of people, that is, if you're paying for clicks on AdWords, you're paying for Facebook remarketing, or if you're doing affiliate or affiliate linking, and you're also then losing 13% on a sale, you can't afford to be dishing out discount codes willy-nilly. This is why I would always go with education and trust building over discounting. And the only time I would ever recommend using 10% discount is if someone's been looking at it every day for 6 months and it's in the basket and they still haven't checked out, then the 10% might nudge them over. But even then, I'd do it only if they referred a friend. The other thing you can do, which we won't shout too loudly about, is perhaps your product may have been on sale for 10% more than it is now for the legally required amount of time before you then offer a 10% discount. Might want to have a look at that. The other thing is if you're selling a stock item, so for example, if you're buying something on wholesale, then look on the wholesaler's website because they often will have it for like $29.99 as the RRP, but they sell it to you at so let's say $9.99 or 10 quid, expecting you to put 20-30% on it. So they're kind of providing you that high price so you can make it look like it's discounted. So like Sofa Warehouse, bathroom, what's it called? The bathroom store. I don't know if you've ever been walking through a town centre and then just on the real outskirts of it, there's the bathroom store. There's never anybody in it. The lights are off and there's a shop and it's like open for 10 minutes on a Tuesday. Essentially, all that shop is doing is selling everything at like 200% more. so they can legally get around the thing saying it's been on sale for 6 months at £2,000. Then they can stick it on their website saying was £2,000, now 400 quid. That's essentially how the big boys get around it. As a small business, it's much easier, especially if you're wholesaling. But the other thing to bear in mind is it is illegal for a supplier or wholesale to force you to sell at an RRP. It's there's some very famous test cases went through the courts last year on this. So if you're buying something in as stock and they say you have to sell it at $99.99, they're not allowed to do that. You can sell it at whatever price you want, and they're not allowed to do it. Some wholesalers and suppliers will then limit your stock. They'll throttle you, is what it's called. So essentially, if they catch you doing it, they then cut you off. You can complain to the Monopolies and Mergers Commission, and they will enforce your contract for you because they are looking for people doing this. So there are some fairly big government bodies on your side if you are in this position. But it's a useful fact that not many e-commerce people know. And I think that is the end of my mini rant on how to sell online.
Yeah, it's a good start. I think there is probably an entire hour-long rant that we could have over that. Probably best with beers and wine and stuff. But
I was going to say, yeah, we'll wait for a next wine evening and then we'll really get stuck into that.
Yeah. So very quickly, just wanted to shout out about this podcast, which I highly recommend, by Chloe Thomas. So there's 2 that she runs. She just launched the second one. One is e-commerce master plan, which just kind of talks with various business owners, kind of large, small, normally businesses that have started smaller than grown, and kind of how they've achieved that and the problems they've had along the way, as well as then also keep optimizing, which is more kind of a technical, kind of very specific. So if you're doing email campaigns, how to get more out of them. Still quite interesting and quite accessible, I think, for small business owners. It's not done in a hugely techy way that some of the SEO podcasts I listen to are, and it really pisses me off. It's kind of real advice and it's quite kind of tangible. So check those out. And then I think this is now the final slide. So we will be following up with an email that contains 5 things, one of which being a link to Simon's course, which is Getting Marketing Working, which I'm sure we can talk more about later. Shopify and Klaviyo link to get you signed up and kind of more information on those. There'll be a link to our podcast and YouTube series, Bastock and Bachelor's Business Bullshit Busters, a Make Your Offer Amazing course, and then also my SEO videos. So if you've got any questions on SEO, there's like a whole bank of stuff, both me talking to camera as well as ones with Simon, where we talk kind of about various SEO topics. So that will be coming up to you. But for now, that is the end of the presentation, and we are now in the full party question and answer section. So we will now move over to chat, and I will stop sharing screen. Hopefully that doesn't kill everything. Excellent. I've been out of focus that entire time, which is slightly annoying. But so Q&A. Feel free to unmute yourselves if you have the ability to do so, and just ask questions, feedback, throw abuse as you feel fit. Open to all discussion at this point. It's nice to see some other people.
I think in terms of, it'd be interesting to know if anybody's sort of recently set up a shop or is thinking of setting up a shop and wants to ask a question about maybe sort of if there's a concern they've got around, what they should choose or what they should use. We can also answer questions around that if anybody's got any specific questions about a platform or a tool they've seen, recommendation they've got, and they're not quite sure if it seems like a legitimate one or what.
Simon, Adam, hi. Thanks for the chat. No abuse today, but maybe next time.
Perfect.
It's very, very informative. Just enjoyed. Made probably about 10 pages of notes.
Excellent.
Just a quick question about the landing page. What would you recommend in terms of landing pages? Is there a particular vendor you'll recommend? Like, God forbid I say this word, Wix.
I wouldn't. I would say Wix is good for getting a kind of very basic site up and running. And if you need a very basic contact form, that's also great. You will get up and running with that. The only slight difficulty with Wix, I find, is that it runs out of steam pretty quick. So it's got a very limited e-commerce offering. The SEO offering isn't brilliant and crucially is very expensive for what is ultimately something incredibly basic. It can be very slow because of the way they run servers. I don't want to get into the technical know-how of it, but ultimately it's not the fastest player out there. For maybe a touch more money, you're looking at maybe something like Squarespace. That's a really easy one to get started with. And that's got a lot more steam. So talking about Wix running out of steam, Squarespace has got a lot of places to go. You can add on some fairly good e-commerce stuff. You know, that'll last you up to maybe 10, 15 products out of the box without needing to do much at all. I'd say depending on your theme choice, you can either sort of paint yourself into a corner with Squarespace. That's the only one downside of all these templates is sometimes you look at a template and go, oh, that's brilliant, it's going to be amazing. And then you get there and you realize you don't have the 15 photos that they've got. And you're like, well, now I've taken the photos out, it looks awful. So I would, whatever you do with any template website, go really basic with it. Start nice and simple and then build up from there.
Curveball idea that I've not actually used that much. MailChimp, they've recently launched their landing page builder. I've not used it, so it might be complete nonsense.
I have used it.
Oh,
and
okay.
if you enjoyed building your last email template, you will love MailChimp's landing page builder.
Okay, don't use them.
That is, I mean, if you've got an afternoon free and a big pack of beer and no one around who's offended by swearing, then I would say MailChimp landing pages is for you. But
There are
wow,
a few,
that's
like specialist ones as well. So like Unbounce, I think, is one. I'm sure I'll find another one.
Squarespace is cheaper though.
Yeah, that's the thing.
By the time you've got like 2 or 3, like landingpages.com, by the time you've got 2 or 3 of them set up, you might as well just have a Squarespace site.
Yeah, okay. Use Squarespace. There you go.
What I've done, guys, is I'm not sure it's a good idea. I've combined my website, my shop, and my landing page into one, which essentially is the Shopify. And I think we spoke about this yesterday. But having looked at the prices and seeing in terms of the pay-per-click, I've spent probably about 12 hours. I did an all-nighter designing my Shopify account. Then having looked at it, spent a couple of days just, pondering about it. I thought, no, won't be going forward to that. But positive side is at least I know how to build a Shopify account.
Yeah.
So I haven't really lost anything.
I think Shopify is really good, and it will be somewhere you kind of eventually get to. It's just that, I mean, I use Squarespace quite a bit and recommend it a lot, just because it does have e-commerce functionality at a very basic level if you wanted to experiment, as you say, with kind of getting stuff set up. But it's not great for scaling. And I think where Shopify takes you from that doing, I don't know, maybe like $5,000 a month, and Squarespace is starting to creep, to then going, right, actually I want to do $500,000 a month. Shopify will handle that. Yeah, I think that's
Shopify better than WooCommerce, because I use WooCommerce.
WooCommerce is really good, but you've got to have a bit of a developer head on, I think, in order to get the most out of it. Also, I would say WooCommerce is rigged with tripwires. It's like you can really easily just download a plugin, install it, and like break the whole thing. So I would say you've got to tread quite carefully with WooCommerce. The other thing that I find with WooCommerce is there's some rogue plugins out there that promise a lot and then deliver very little. I'm going to go big here and say LearnDash is one of them. They've spent all of their time on marketing, and the marketing for that plugin is absolutely exceptional. The plugin itself is 2 stars at best.
Really?
I mean, it's an absolute nightmare. Like, once you've got the other 5 paid plugins you need to make it work, it's good. But my God, I mean, I've been developing WordPress websites for 5 years, and that nearly sent me over the edge. So I would say some of the things with WooCommerce is they're incredibly technical, and the marketing of it doesn't mention it because they don't want you to know that it's going to take you hours and you have to buy other paid plugins and stuff. So I would say WooCommerce is exceptionally powerful, and a lot of the stuff we build for it on our agency side, we always use WooCommerce just because the level of customer we're dealing with is generally at that stage, or they want something very custom. So we've got one guy who runs a fencing company, so he's selling stuff like that needs delivery on a lorry. So his delivery requirements are really complicated, and there's no way Shopify is going to get anywhere near that. So for him, WooCommerce is the only option. However, we've had another couple of customers come to us, and we've looked at WooCommerce and said, you know what, it's just a bit too much. You may as well just build a Shopify site because that handles it. So, but I wouldn't say one is better than the other. I'd say they're both exceptionally powerful platforms. It's just that one maybe needs a little bit more know-how and a bit more kind of treading lightly, or it needs a more considered approach
I
for
think
WooCommerce.
it's just more, it's about being which one's more appropriate than kind of better. And I think there's a couple of clients I'm working with where we're starting to reach the levels of, we probably do want a custom WooCommerce site, and it's a question of when can we afford to do that to make it even better. But Shopify has taken us from doing $5,000 a month to doing £500,000 a month or whatever, in terms of sales. But it's now like, well, we do actually kind of want like a more customized checkout that, or like product pages that have got 5 variants rather than 3. And, it's little things like that. But I think the benefit of going on to Shopify is that you'll quite quickly learn what you do want and what the limitations are for the WooCommerce site. So it's quite a good way to spec out a WooCommerce site almost, because you'll go, well, actually, no, I do actually want to be able to deliver stuff on a lorry at 4 p.m. on a Tuesday, as well as ship it to like internationally with no tax on, but only tax on the 4th day of the month. And it's like, well, if you've got a developer there, you can do all that. Shopify you can't. If Shopify gets you to the point where you kind of have that scale, so.
WooCommerce also plugs in. I mean, this all changes in January, which is infuriating. But like current EU tax laws for VAT, it's just. I mean, my God, if you want some bedtime reading, that's a nightmare. However, there's a really cool service called TaxJar, which plugs into both Shopify and WooCommerce, and it handles all of that for you. So if you're VAT registered and you're selling stuff globally, it handles global VAT for you. It is a subscription, but your accountant will thank you for it. And I would work out what your accountant's hourly rate is, and then look at how much TaxJar is, and work out which one you'd rather be paying.
Yeah.
It's good. It does like your EU VAT return for you, so it's phenomenal in that sense. But that's only for digital services, of course. For actual physical products, no one knows. So we got a letter from HMRC because we were once registered for selling products, and it just said VAT is changing, but we don't know what to. So like, great, thanks. So the official guidance is there is no guidance.
Brilliant.
By the time you all add all these plugins, Simon, it's going to work. I mean, I looked at the plugins on Shopify. I mean, so some of them are quite expensive, 70 quid, 80 quid. I mean, by the time you add 4 or 5 plugins, it's going to, you really need to have a really good product and really good, view to make it worthwhile.
And this is why I was saying earlier, like, if you're not like, don't set it, basically sell it, then build it. So get 10 people who are ready to buy, and then build the thing that's going to deliver it, because then you know that someone's going to pay you the money. If you do it the other end, if you build it and then hope they'll come, you'll go bust doing that. I mean, I've just spent the last year working on the Marketing Success Club syllabus, of which 2 weeks ago, I've changed the whole thing. There's a whole year's worth of work that I've just flipped because of what people want. And it's that thing of, now I've started selling it, everyone's saying, oh no, I want something different. It's like, oh. So you've got to be adaptive, I would say. So if you're in that position you're in, where you're like, you're looking at some quite big plugins, that that's going to help you deliver it. So I would say sell it, then build it.
Just very quickly as well, because I think the questions coming in, but you also have to compare it to the cost of a developer. So the plugins look really expensive until you get a quote from a developer to implement a custom solution of that. So a lot of the Shopify ones, they have made kind of very complex functionality very accessible, which would normally cost, at least for a Magento. I used to work for a company that ran a Magento website. Well, they didn't need to really, but they were. And there was some stuff on there that, like, having a bar at the top was like a countdown timer, and they were quoting 2 days for that to be written and implemented. Whereas on Shopify, that's an app that costs, I don't know, like 10 quid a month. Or on Magento, it costs 2 days of the Magento developer's time, which is about 1,200 quid. So it's suddenly like, they're expensive, but they do actually make it quite affordable for small businesses. But you just need to know whether it's actually worth that investment.
I think also with WooCommerce plugins, for example, like MemberPress is a really good example. We've just built a site with that. Now, MemberPress is $250 a year, which initially I was like, woo-wee, that's a lot of money. However, when I then said to the developer, how much would it cost for you to do this? We were looking at around £8,000. to do the same functionality, and I'd probably have to pay him £200 to £300 every quarter to update it and keep it working. So suddenly $250 is an absolute bargain. And I must say that after being down on LearnDash, MemberPress has been the opposite experience. I installed it and it just hooked up to everything. It's an absolute dream. I had a problem with it. I emailed support. They were back within half an hour. You know, it was superb, absolutely brilliant. So that when you get a great plugin, you can, it's like having a developer on hand. There's one called Wholesale Suite as well, if you're thinking of doing wholesale e-commerce stuff, and that they are superb. They're really good team, and the plugin's great. It's like almost $400 a year, but it basically creates an entire wholesale business that sits alongside your shop. So you can have wholesale accounts, custom discounts. I mean, it's great. Really, really good plugin. So again, as Adam said, it's that thing of, yes, it's a lot of money, but actually if it's saving you thousands on development. So for example, to put it in perspective, let's say on Shopify, you spend £200 a month on plugins. It's like, well, maybe the equivalent to get that custom built in WooCommerce could be probably £15,000 to £20,000. So actually, how many months of that do you have to pay before it starts to, and then probably you're looking at £200 to £300 a month support to keep that going. Whereas with Shopify, that's all built in. So yeah, as I say, if you can sell it and then build it, then you've got the money coming in to pay for those plugins, and then it makes sense.
Any other questions? Sorry, just
Thanks, guys. Loving the work.
A question. Just about to launch a new website on Shopify, jewelry, which Adam knows all about, and and I'm thinking, so I'm going to do a soft launch because I'm sure there's going to be a bit of a tag list of feedback, so I can change it over the month coming ahead. But just like you were saying, like do one platform well or a couple. So I'm thinking email, one of them, an obvious, easiest. And what would you suggest for the other two with jewelry, selling jewelry, bespoke and collections? Like I'm thinking Facebook and Instagram. But what would you be your advice really on that? I'm sort of doing a soft marketing, soft launch this month, and then I'm meeting with someone who's brander. She can see what's worked, what hasn't, and then we're going to actually go in strong in September once people have fed back the website, what's working, what's not, what makes sense, this kind of thing. So what would you suggest with that?
I'd say Facebook retargeting ads would be, it's nice because you're on Shopify, I believe, so it's super easy to turn on, and it's really effective at getting people back. And because you're already very active on the social channel anyway, you've got a good audience, you can retarget. I would say, and then maybe look at some brand awareness ads, find a new audience.
Through Facebook?
Yeah, on Facebook ads. It's not that expensive to get out there because you've got an active channel. You've already got a lot of them creative.
Yeah.
And then I would then say it's probably worth starting to look at what your traffic is, what's selling well, and then I would look at creating collections and then some content around that, and then starting to build out the SEO. But I'd definitely get some traffic to the site first, and let the market, as you will, tell you what it's interested in.
There'll be a report on that exact thing later this week for you, Rosie. In terms of collections, I've been looking into this, and it's been interesting because I think there's an opportunity there in terms of being, even if you look at Facebook ads, is then going, well, what products do you want to do on that? Do you want to take some of your kind of high-end kind of pre-designed rings, or do you want to advertise your bespoke service and use that and then target only people who are kind of, because within Facebook and Instagram you can target people who have just got married or who've just got engaged or changed their Facebook status, and people who are interested in the kind of wedding demographic. So even if you just take that one service and that one landing page of bespoke kind of design for bridal rings, that might be an entire campaign ignoring your products. So I think it would be worth kind of thinking about from your side what you actually want to advertise as well, and then kind of build it back from there a little bit.
Categorize it, like the collections, which are sterling silver gold plate, then the bespoke, like literally section it up and just test it.
Yeah, I think so. Because I think like with bespoke stuff, it might be that Google Ads is actually really good for that as well, where it isn't necessarily as good for like the rings and for the bracelets and stuff.
Yeah, they're all different and different markets, really.
Yeah, well, it's thinking about your customer audience and blocking it out based on them, and trying to carve it up. Not accurately, but you can just go, right, people who are getting married, that is one audience, and this is the product I've got for them. Kind of it's the cheaper end of the jewelry stuff, where it's more people who just want to treat themselves to a one-off piece, that are kind of maybe 30s and earning X amount. That's this person. And then you've got more really expensive stuff that's targeting a different audience. So it's just about segmenting up a little bit.
I think also I've got a lot of stock in one particular area, and I think maybe I should focus on selling that stock, because that's money, dead money.
Yeah.
The other thing you can do, which isn't immediately obvious in Facebook ads, is when you're doing retargeting ads, the ads it kind of builds for you are dynamic. So let's say you look at a product A, B, and C on the website. It then shows you an ad of product A, B, and C when you suggest building the ads. But actually, what you can then do is you can add to that a collection ad or a single image ad, which is another product you sell, and that can go out to the retarget audience. So you don't just have to use the dynamic product ads. You can also then say, I want to show this ad, which is other products I sell. So of the stock you've got, you can show that to anybody who's been to the website, anybody who's subscribed, anybody who follows you. You can build up a large retarget audience. It doesn't have to be based on products they've looked at.
Okay.
So that can be a good way of cross-selling, upselling stuff as well. The other thing I would consider, especially with the bridal, is Pinterest. I don't know if you do much on Pinterest.
Yeah, and that's on my list actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I would get on Pinterest and treat yourself to a few what they call pins. Yeah. So they're sponsored pins. Sponsored. Yeah, and because you're on Shopify, it's a one-click connect, and you can have buy now within Pinterest. So people can buy your stuff from within Pinterest. Yeah.
You have to pay for the Pinterest. I've got a Pinterest account, but I haven't linked them up or anything.
No, I think you would pay if it's sponsored.
Yeah. Right.
But it's like people tagging products in Instagram. It's not. You don't pay a commission, because ultimately you're keeping people in the app.
Yeah.
So that's why Pinterest like it. But the wedding market is enormous on Pinterest. It is huge. Yeah, what do they call it? Significant lifetime event market.
Yeah.
That is weddings, babies, houses, and gardens.
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Thank you.
Any other questions? There's a lot of note taking, which I enjoy. But...
Yes, lots of frantic scribbling, which is always good to see. Well, yeah, so you can connect with me and Adam on LinkedIn. So you can see our names here. I'm Simon Batchelor on LinkedIn, and Adam is Adam Bastock on LinkedIn. If you want to know more about Marketing Success Club or getting your marketing working for your business, you can find more information at marketingsuccess.club. And the attendees will be getting an email with a couple of links in to some of the bits that are available there. So look out for that. Adam, where can people find a bit more about what you're doing?
Yeah, so either LinkedIn, which I'm trying to be more active on, but not very successfully at the minute, or also my website, adam@abastock.co.uk. And I'm putting together kind of an e-commerce SEO packages price list, essentially, that I can send over to you if you did want to invest in that, which breaks it down in a bit more detail in terms of your kind of growth ambitions and where you want to be. So, which, yeah, people will be receiving shortly in this call as well. But yeah, I think we'll send over an email that kind of summarizes all the points and links to kind of more resources and stuff. Do check out the podcast, both ours and the e-commerce master plan one, because I think it's a really good one to get thoughts going. Then ours is more kind of practical and hands-on.
Yeah.
There'll
be another one next week from us.
Yes. I think the last one actually was on kind of WooCommerce versus Shopify, wasn't it? So Nick, you might want to check that one out. It was quite a good, more in-depth kind of comparison.
Yeah, but also if you've got any other questions, if you suddenly think of anything you want us to talk about in the podcast, do just get in touch with us, and we'll do a podcast on it. We'll happy to take suggestions and requests.
And yeah, do email me as well, because I think you've all got my email address, because I sent out the Zoom links from it. So if you just hit reply to that, then I will respond at some point with information. But yeah, any questions? Let us know. Other than that, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Hope it was helpful.
Much. Nice one. Yeah, thanks very much, everybody. And thanks to everybody who was watching on YouTube as well. You know how to get in touch with us, so hopefully we'll speak to you soon.
Yes.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks,
Bye.
Adam.
Bye now.
Nice one.
Bye.
Cheers. Thank you.